know things are tough out there, but we can do this. If it matters to you, that's what I want to talk about.
10 seconds to air.
Well, thank you. This is going to be a changing day in your life.
Ready, camera 5.
Take track.
Go, Dr. Phil. Let's do it.
Thank you, thank you. Today we're traveling back in time to resolve an issue that plagued millions of European couples in the early 1800s, bigamy. Our guest in the studio today was a governess who fell in love with her employer. Drama ensued, but in the end, her employer professed his love for her and asked her to marry him. Sounds very romantic and almost fairy tale-ish, doesn't it? But her only problem was, her employer was already married, and the governess was not aware of his marriage. To make matters worse, his wife lived in the same house where the governess worked, and the governess did not learn of his marriage until the day of their wedding. I know, that was also my reaction. Unbelievable. This situation has become very serious. Let's take a look.
Hi Dr. Phil. About a year ago, I took the position of governess at Thornfield Hall and I was put in charge of educating a young French girl named Adele Varennes. The master and owner of Thornfield Hall was an Englishman named Edward Rochester. My employer was moody, ugly, and 20 years older than me, yet I still developed a deep relationship with him and eventually fell in love. But Mr. Rochester did not seem to love me back. He apparently loved another woman named Blanche Ingram. Miss Ingram was beautiful, elegant, and wealthy. I thought Mr. Rochester would surely marry Miss Ingram, but after months of deception, Mr. Rochester finally declared his passionate love for me and asked me to be his bride. I thought my dreams had come reality until my wedding ceremony, where I learned that Mr. Rochester was already married and his wife was concealed and locked in Thornfield Hall. The wedding was called off and I was left wounded, like a robin with an injured wing that is unable to fly. Even though Mr. Rochester's wife was insane and ferocious, he had no right to not alert me of this marriage to Bertha Mason. Mr. Rochester still thinks we can flee to southern France and live as a husband and wife. I still have feelings for Mr. Rochester and I still love him, but I don't want to become his mistress or involve myself with bigamy. Dr. Phil, I need your help.
Edward Rochester is a wealthy, successful, and passionate Englishman who had a very dark secret. Bertha Mason, his first wife, emigrated from Jamaica only to be ignored and hidden by her disloyal husband after supposedly becoming mentally insane. Jane Eyre, oblivious to all the woes of Mr. Rochester, was swept into the complications of his marriage. Here's the question. Was Edward right in abandoning his wife for this more attractive, younger, mentally stable woman? Would it be acceptable for Jane to still have a relationship with Edward? After the break, we will meet Edward, Jane, and Bertha to discuss and resolve these pressing issues.
No sign of him, my lord.
Harry Potter, the boy who lived, come to die.
Because I have something worth living for.
Crucio! Crucio! Alert! I explained the topic of today's show and the problems I, Dr. Phil, will attempt to solve. Now it is time to introduce the guests on today's show. Please help me welcome Edward Rochester, Jane Eyre, and Bertha Mason. Hello, Jane, it's nice to have you here.
It's nice to be here.
Well, Jane, you seem to be in a predicament.
Yes, sir, I am.
Let me tell you a story. I was in a predicament similar to this once in my life. There I was, alone in front of a vending machine on a street corner. The machine contained 3 types of soda: Coke, Pepsi, and Faygo. I had no idea which type of soda to choose. Coke, the classic American drink, looked so inviting on that hot summer day. But then I saw Pepsi, which is very similar to Coke, in my opinion. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw Faygo, my favorite kind of soda. This was by far the best option, but there was only 1 can left, and it was dented and looked very expired. I really had no idea what to do and was very thirsty. My throat was dry, I was having hallucinations.
Excuse me, sir, but how does this apply to my situation?
It is simple. You have 3 options, just like I did. The first 2 options, bigamy and adultery, have similar consequences and benefits. The last option, to leave Edward, is like Faygo. Even though it seems to be the best option, the flaws seem to prevent you from choosing it. This option would preserve your virtue and dignity, but you would hurt Edward and never be able to see him again.
Well, if this is similar to your predicament, how did it make your final decision?
After I meditated for a few hours, prayed to Zeus, and questioned my magic 8-ball, I decided to use Cha-Cha to make my final decision. Cha-Cha told me to choose Faygo, and I took their expert advice. Today, you are alone in front of a vending machine, and I am like Cha-Cha, waiting to be called upon to assist you in making a decision.
Wow, that was an inspirational story, sir, but will you please stop trying to figure out my situation?
Of course, darling. Let's begin. So, Edward, this situation began years ago when you married Bertha Mason, a Jamaican, correct?
Yes.
So what happened to your marriage? What went wrong with your wife?
I first met my wife in Spanish Town, Jamaica. My family encouraged our marriage because she was wealthy. At the time, she seemed normal and was healthy mentally, physically, and emotionally. I was not aware that both her brother and her mother had been insane, and she was probably insane too, though my family knew this. I was tricked into this marriage because my father and brother needed the money. After I took Bertha back to England, it became obvious that she was mentally ill. I could have sent her to an insane asylum, but I took it upon myself to have her cared for.
So you say she's insane. I want the audience to take a look at this video.
Good morning, Mrs. Poole. How are you? And how is your charge today?
We're tolerable, sir. Thank you. Rather snappish, but not outrageous. Ah, sir, she sees you. You'd better not stay.
Only a few moments.
You must allow me a few moments. Take care then, sir. For God's sake, take care.
Keep out of my way. She has no knife now, I suppose, and I'm on my guard.
One never knows what she has, sir. She is so cunning, it is not in mortal discretion to fathom her craft.
Go to the devil, Grace.
Where?
Wow, that is a very shocking video. Since I'm a certified doctor, I should be able to provide an accurate diagnosis for you. That video is clear evidence that Bertha is mentally unstable. You also said her violence, a result of her insanity, has also been a serious problem. Has she tried to kill members and guests of the household before?
Yes, sir, she has.
I want the audience to take a look at this video.
Wake, wake!
Is there a flood?
No, sir, but there has been a fire. Get up, you are drenched down. I will fetch you a candle.
In the name of all the elves in Christendom, is that Jane Eyre? What have you done with me, witch sorceress? Who is in the room beside you? Have you plotted to drown me?
I will fetch you a candle, sir, and in heaven's name, get up. Somebody has plotted something. You cannot too soon find out who and what it is.
Oh, there, I'm up now. But at your peril, you fetch me a candle yet, until 2 minutes till I get into some dry garments. If any dry be there, yes, here is my dressing gown. Now run.
We've all seen the insanity displayed by Bertha Mason. But even though she was mentally unstable, was it okay for Edward to abandon his wife to pursue another woman? Divorce is not an option, is that correct, Edward?
Yes, sir. For me to divorce Bertha Mason, an act of Parliament would have needed to be passed. Divorce was not a solution to my marriage. My wife was a prisoner in my home, but I was a prisoner in my marriage. I needed to find a way out. I had to find a woman that I could spend the rest of my life with.
Let's take a look at another clip.
This is my wife. Such is the sole conjugal embrace I am ever to know. Such are the endearments which to solace my leisure hours. And this is what I wish to have. Jane. This young girl, who stands so grave and quiet at the mouth of hell, looking collectively at the gambols of a demon. I wanted her just as a change after that fierce ragout. Wood and Briggs, look at the difference. Compare these clear eyes with the red balls yonder in her face, with that mask, this form, with that bulk, then judge me, priest of the gospel and man of the law. And remember, with what judgment ye judge ye shall be judged. Off with you now, I must shut up my prize.
Edward, it is obvious you feel you deserve to be able to marry Jane.
Yes, I feel I was tricked into my first marriage, and I was left with a burden instead of a wife. Jane was my opportunity for a happy life.
There is still one more issue we need to address, Edward. Why did you not tell Jane about Bertha? You had opportunities to break this news to Jane, but instead you lied to her. I want the audience to take a look at this video taped after Bertha had set Edward's bed on fire.
I forgot whether you said you saw anything when you opened your chamber door.
No, sir, only the candlestick on the ground.
But you heard not laugh? You have heard that laugh before, I should think, or something like it.
Yes, sir, there is a woman who sews here called Grace Poole. She laughs in that way. She is a singular person.
Just so. Grace Poole. You have guessed it.
Don't you think after this incident you should have told Jane about Bertha?
I thought it was better not to tell her at this time.
What? Jane, please contribute to this discussion. Wouldn't you have wanted to know about Bertha before you married Edward?
Yes, I would have wanted to know. That was very thoughtless of him to hide the fact that he was already married for me.
Thoughtless? I was trying to protect you. I knew you would not have loved me if you were aware that I was already married. I was planning to tell you eventually. I told you that I would reveal a secret to you about a year and a day after we were married. I still love you more than I will ever love Bertha.
After the break, we will help Jane make a decision that could have a significant impact on the rest of her life. Welcome back to the program. I'm Dr. Phil. Before the break, we learned about the events leading up to this predicament. We learned about Edward's marriage to Bertha, Bertha's insanity, and Bertha's violence, and what Jane thinks of all of this. We now come to the big question. What will Jane decide to do? Jane, you have 3 choices. Let's look at the pros and cons we have already discussed in this segment. The pros. You love Edward, and Edward also has very deep feelings for you. Even though his wife is insane, he still cared for her rather than sending her to an insane asylum. Now let's look at the cons. He lied to you and didn't tell you that he was already married. In my opinion, the cons outweigh the pros. I would advise you to never involve yourself with Mr. Rochester again. Preserve your dignity and virtue. Even though you are in love with him, there are plenty of fish in the sea, and you'll still be able to find another man. But this is not my problem or my choice. Jane, you must make this decision, and you must commit to it.
Edward, I still love you, but I cannot be with you because of your marriage to Bertha. I cannot be your mistress or be involved in bigamy. Don't try to follow me. I will never be with you as long as Bertha is alive.
But I can get rid of Bertha. She will never come between us. I don't even love her. I love you.
Good to have you here, Mr. Rochester.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Stay calm, everyone. That concludes our segment of Dr. Phil for today.